And apparently some of the literature that I've read says that the barb that he has on his penis is actually quite painful for both him and the female to withdraw. Here you can see those suckle marks again. Let's see, he's probably going to lie in our way. Yeah. Might just be able to get one. No. So Aubrey's just asked what would happen if this lioness tried to escape or run away. Quite simply, Aubrey, the male would just follow. He would literally just hound her every step of the way until her body stops giving off the pheromones that is telling him to be in attendance. And that should happen in the next day or so. This is about day 5 of this particular mating that we know of, at least. And it's now every 10 minutes or so, 10 minutes, 12 minutes. I haven't quite been keeping a stopwatch on it, but about 10 or 12 minutes between mating sessions, which is still relatively frequent. Not as frequent as the every 3 to 5 minutes that it would have been at some point during this cycle, but definitely at 10 minutes still deep in it. Might go on for another 48 hours or so like it is at the moment, and then what will gradually happen is these bouts between matings will be longer and longer and longer, eventually going to a point where when she gets up and moves away, he won't follow her. And it's because she would have stopped giving, her body would have stopped producing the chemicals that's telling him to respond in this particular manner. So in the small answer to your question, it's not easy for her to get away now whatsoever. I think she's stuck with him until her body changes. One of those things. Almost betrayed by her own body in this particular sense. I must say it's not that warm right now. I think it's probably around between 60 and 70 degrees. So probably closer to 60 degrees. And you can see them curling up. Jamie McCartney has just asked a question about how long lions stay pregnant for. Jamie, they stay pregnant for about 110 days. So 110 days is the length of time that they stay pregnant for. They can go as short as 90 days, but generally they will go for over 100 days. 110 days. The babies are blind and helpless for the first couple of days of their life, and then their eyes will open. They are dependent on milk for the first 8 weeks of their life. Then they will be introduced to some meat. After around about 8 weeks, they will then become fully weaned between 6 and 9 months old, and they will be independent and a productive member of the pride from about 1.5 years for females to about 2 years for males, after which the males literally leave. They will then come into their sexual maturity, the males, and the females will, the new young females at about 2 years will start to have their own litters and to start adding to the numbers of the pride. Males will then roam for the next couple of years to when they are about 5 years of age, at which point they will be big enough to take over their own prides, becoming into their prime from about 6 to 7 years old, and then from 7 years old onwards they sort of decline in condition to a point where they're usurped by younger, stronger males. And finding lions that are older than 10 years old is relatively rare. It's not uncommon. It's relatively rare. In captivity, they can live up to about 16 years. Out here, it's very rare to find a lion older than 12 years. Females will have their first litter around about 18 months to 24 months, somewhere around there. They'll have their first litter. They will then become very dominant in the pride from 5 years of age to about 9 years of age. And after 9 years of age, they literally just add their experience and will taper off to about 12 years as well out here. The deaths of lions happen through a variety of things, either an injury, a massive injury sustained while hunting, a horn through the gut, being bashed by a buffalo, so blunt force trauma or something like that, that debilitates them and stops them from moving around, or they get attacked by other lions. Very common cause of death amongst lions is being attacked by other lions, or a lioness will find herself away from a pride and will be set upon by a hyena, and a hyena will also sometimes kill lions like that. So there is lion lifespan for you, I think, in a bit of a nutshell. But what we're looking at here is a very, very we're looking at a very, very special thing here. This is the generation of new life and has far-reaching consequences for lion numbers in the park going forward. A very important event you're witnessing here. Now, Rob has asked, do lions, will this male and female hunt cooperatively together? Rob, let me think about that question, because yes, in a sense, it's possible for them to hunt cooperatively while they are mating with one another. Do they do it, though, is the question. No, they don't. I have seen leopard, while mating, hunt cooperatively and share a kill while mating. I've seen it once in my guiding career. I have very rarely seen lions do anything except mate during their time together. I'm trying to think back now. As I'm sitting here right now, Rob, I can't think of a single occasion where I've witnessed male and female lions hunting, killing something and eating as well as mating. Even if they've stolen something, I'm thinking back in my memory banks now. I want to say I've maybe seen a lioness with a stolen kill feeding while mating once, but I can't actually remember the exact sighting. So no, let me just stick with that. Not common at all. She's just sleeping now. And Jamie McCartney has just asked me how many cubs can a lioness have at one time. Jamie, anywhere from 1 to 6, but it's common to have somewhere between 2 and 4 cubs at any one time. So 1 to 6 is what has been observed, but more commonly anywhere between 2 and 4 lions at any given time, or what we commonly see out here. And they will stay together plus minus for the rest of their lives. Those cubs that are born, not only cubs that are born to the female will have a bond, a very tight bond, but also cubs born to other females at around the same time, within 6 months, will also have an incredibly tight bond with one another. The litter mates will quite often stick together in very close groups for the rest of their lives. Males will move off together as a coalition, and females will very often stick together. Related females will hunt together, have cubs together, be found in each other's company most of the time throughout their lives. Very, very close. And the inevitable question from Anthony Law. What would happen if another male had to walk in here? Would they fight? Would he be ignored? What would happen? Anthony, if one of this Birmingham male, as we call him, is part of a coalition of 4 related males, and if one of those 4 or one of those 3 had to come up upon him, he'd probably try and maintain dominance over this female. They will not fight for dominance over this female. Within this 4 in the coalition, first come, first served. The male who gets to this female first and is in attendance first will have mating rights. They will not battle with one another often. It's not like it cannot happen. This is just 80% of the time, remember. Most commonly, they will not battle for dominance over a female. The first one to get there is the one that will stay with that female. If another male from a rival pride had to come here, though, there will be a fight. There will be a big fight. And generally speaking, males will try and keep in their core territories, in the middle of their territories when they're mating, keep the females in the middle of their territories when they're mating, to try and stop that from happening. On the fringes of this territory, you're going to have other males that could possibly come in. And if he was caught unawares on mating with this female by another coalition that far outnumber him or outweigh him, he will absolutely be killed forthwith. He won't be able to leave this female. It's not in their making to want to leave a female that he's mating with. And unless he's driven off, he will stand his ground and possibly even be killed. So unrelated males from different prides will fight. Males from the same coalition in that pride will generally not fight. Just to answer your question as succinctly as I can. Daryl wants to know if these mating lions are close to their pride. Daryl, yes, actually. I don't know where the rest of the pride is. I do know, however, that they've just finished the buffalo they killed yesterday morning. And that is probably less than a mile from here, from where we're sitting at the moment, is where the pride was. There's a very good chance that they are in the vicinity. She may even have been trying to get to that kill to feed a little bit, but was unable to do so because of this male keeping her so close under his watch. But yes, they're relatively close. It's not necessarily always the case. You do sometimes find that mating pairs are very far away from where the rest of the pride is, but generally always in the core territory, in the middle of their core territory, where other male lions from other coalitions are not welcome. So in this particular case, yes, not always the case though. To a bush or next to a thicket, or dig a scrape in the sand to get to warmer sand, I think their body mass is big enough. She's roughly, not the biggest lioness I've ever seen, but she's probably around about 100 kilograms, 200 pounds. He's also not the biggest lion I've ever seen, but he's definitely around the 180 to 200 kilogram mark, potentially a little bit over that. So 400 pounds. Just a little bit over 400 pounds. And I think probably at the bulk that they're at, big enough that cold snaps that we're having at the moment are not too much of a hindrance to them. That fur that they've got looks like the hair on top of my head, very sparse and thin, but let me tell you that that fur is probably half an inch thick and as dense as the densest hairbrush you've ever seen. The fibers of hair are very, very close to one another. And probably half an inch long. Rachel, you just asked me if a lioness only has one cub, you believe or have heard that the lioness will abandon that cub. Rachel, I've never seen that happen myself. I've never read of that particular occurrence. So in my experience, I'd say that that's probably a bit of folklore. It's not to say that somebody did not witness that particular event at some place, but I would say that if it did happen, it was abnormal and definitely not normal to happen. To give some scale to these lions, and how big they actually are, the root of her tail there, you will not be able to encompass with your one hand. Give you an idea of how thick that tail is. So do yourself a favor and put your two hands together, joining your fingertips to fingertips, making a circle between your forefingers and your thumb. That is the diameter of a male lion's tail. So let me show you here quickly. That is about the thickness of the root of a male lion's tail. I know it looks massive, but I tell you that is as big as what it is. Maybe even a little bit bigger for a really big male. A female's root of her tail will probably be like this. So the diameter of a can, a soft drink can, That's the diameter of her tail. Male's paws, if I stretch my hand as wide as what I can, his front paw will be bigger by about 10% on either side. With his forearms, where most of his power gets to, probably about as big as your upper arm is, maybe even as big as your calf is, a chunk of meat and bone and sinew and tendon about this big. So they really are massive animals. He's just reacted to something here. Not too sure what it is. We are alone in this particular sighting now, so I think I'm going to quickly just change position of the car. Let's get ourselves into a slightly better position for in case they mate, or when they mate again, not in case they mate again. You're going to just stick with us while I quickly reposition the car. It shouldn't take us too long or be too painful. This will give us a much better view. Of this pair. I'm also just quickly going to take some time just to do some admin on the radio. I've been a very naughty boy in being in charge of this particular sighting. I haven't kept anyone updated. Our stations, the mating pair is still static in the same place off of Cheetah Plains, just on the northern side of the junction or central. There's only one mobile in this particular lock. Anyone wishing to join, please feel free to do so. If you cannot get me on the radio, it's just because I'm presenting at the same time. Feel free just to pull in. Right, that's administration out of the way. She's still busy sleeping. You can see the difference between the heads of the lions, the male lion and the female. Oh, here we go. She seems like they're hearing things. Oh, here we go. He won't be able to resist this. And of course, because I've moved, they're going to go exactly where... yes. Forward a little bit, just so we can get it when it does happen. I know that sounds a little bit weird, but you can see he's absolutely not leaving her alone for a second. Not the nicest view, I'm sorry about that. About the only view we could get. And a big baleful stare in our direction afterwards for doing that. I'm sorry, boy, I didn't mean to do that. That was rude. Bristling mane, making himself look as big as possible. And that very characteristic rolling over onto her back. And that's just to make sure that there's maximum fluid retention. You can imagine that if 1,000 copulations for every baby that needs to reach a year old, that this female definitely wouldn't want to waste any effort, any more effort I should say, in trying to fall pregnant. The frequency to me has probably increased by maybe a minute or two, but that doesn't really matter too much. I think you need to take an average over a 24-hour period. And I think we are in the waning period of this particular copulation, well, not copulation, of this particular episode. And I think we're going to start seeing a definite decrease in the frequency of copulations over the next sort of 24 hours or so. It'll be interesting to see how far they move. Yesterday morning we tracked them from very close to the camp, basically from there to here was where they were found, and I think it was because this female was probably trying to get to her sisters at that buffalo carcass, but he managed to head her off before they got there. From there to here, probably around 3 kilometers, easily 3.5 kilometers. So yesterday they moved quite a distance. Today, between last night and today, they haven't even moved half a mile.
I think it's something good. I think it's something hilarious. We do find ourselves stuck in the road, actually. While Steph waits for the 10 minutes to bypass, we actually can't bypass this particular obstacle. This is a monkey thorn tree, and it has been very carefully placed right across the road. Right, so we attempted, Dave and myself, to move the tree, and we thought that perhaps, well, actually, let's rephrase that. The girls in Final Control are always watching what we're doing, and they thought it might be a nice idea to show you how that worked out for us. So why don't you have a look at this clip? Apparently I'm scratching my head. This beanie's quite itchy. I'm now thinking to myself, how are we going to do this? But Dave has gallantly leapt into the fray to try and assist us. Now we're trying to work out where to move it and how to move it. Working out that one branch is stuck. Now I'm saying to Dave, watch out for the thorns, Dave. At this point, one has attached himself to poor Dave's inner thigh as we pull frantically. Dave is... And at this point we decided this, yep, no, we haven't changed a thing. Our brave Dave faced down those thorns, and the thorns emerged victorious, having taken a, to quote Dave, a chunk out of his inner thigh. How are you feeling, Dave?
I'm alright.
You're alright. It's stinging gently.
A little bit, yes.
Stinging a little bit, yes. Monkey thorns tend to do that. When I said look out for the thorns, I meant look out for the thorns. So poor Dave, our wounded warrior, is back on camera once again. Both of us have decided that perhaps this tree can wait for another day. I'm going to turn around and go and look for those elephants that I can hear somewhere off in the distance, trumpeting furiously at something. And I think that perhaps David's wound is a bit too far up for propriety's sake. I'm not sure how Dave feels about it, but I think perhaps the wound will have to remain between Dave, myself, and the monkey thorn. Unfortunately, let's suffice to say there is some blood, gallons and gallons of blood. Not quite. There's a couple of drops of blood. But he's a brave soldier, and it could have been far worse than it was. Let's put it that way. It could have been far, far worse for Dave. I don't even think I would have laughed if that had been the case. I would have felt most tragically sorry for him. It's raining! Is it raining? Okay. No, it is raining. It's drizzling. So as it gently drizzles down upon our heads and upon Dave's wounded, sweat-drenched brow, we were actually talking about reintroduction of animals into areas. And the amazing thing is, of course, as is typical of the human fashion, as South Africa slowly became more and more civilized, in inverted commas, the natural progression is the animals' homes became more and more restricted as farmland became more popular or more necessary, particularly with the invention of DDTs, at which point this area and the areas around it became habitable. There's no longer the risk of sleeping sickness or malaria. to take on. You still run the slight risk of malaria in this place, but it's not nearly what it used to be. Leidenburg, of course, the place of tears, a city not too far away from here. Leidenburg, called Leidenburg because people lost half, or one of the groups of settlers lost half their population to malaria. Anyway, so moving on from that, now what we've got is this constant expansion of private conservation in South Africa, which is a wonderful thing. People have realized that there is a sustainability to it, and so reintroduction of animals is occurring. And I got very lucky one evening watching certain animals being reintroduced to an area. I'm not going to say where, and I'm not going to say what they were, but for the first time probably in about 70 years that these particular animals had roamed this patch of land. Watched them groggily standing up. They'd been moved from the Eastern Cape to the Lowveld, and then watching them gently trot off into the night. And then, of course, they realized that one of them realized we were there and came gently, not so gently, trotting back towards us in a fury at the state it found itself in, at which point we left the scene most hastily. However, up until that moment where I had to accelerate very rapidly, it was a truly touching moment to see animals being reintroduced back into a place where they once existed quite peacefully, all on their own. Now, the smaller the piece of land is, the more you have to manage it. We're fortunate where we are in that the land manages itself, the animal population manages itself. But there's a lot of fantastic work being done throughout South Africa. And of course with it always comes the increased risk of human, or at least... I'm talking, Franklin. Are you going to respond in kind? Can I carry on my conversation? Yes, thank you. Crested Franklin, telling everyone that it is alive and well this morning. And yes, with introduction of animals or reintroduction of animals comes the increased pressure on surrounding settlements and villages, but there are ways around that have been wonderful to see. The rest of your brethren are calling, Franklin. You're going to join them. Oh, Sister Killer gave the Franklin a fright. Alright, I was hoping our Franklin might give us a demonstration of its call. I have decided to expand my search slightly farther afield for Karula. As you know, Karula occasionally sort of somehow jumps over. Watch out, it's a monkey thorn, Dave. Yeah, watch out. Guard your inner thighs carefully. What was I going to say? Completely. Oh yes. That is what I was going to say, Rebecca. You are right, but I didn't say guard. I said guard your inner thighs. Anyway, moving on. I was talking about Karula and the search for her. She's somewhere in that block. I've tried. It's very windy. It's very risky to walk in the dense areas where I think that she is hiding. So what we're going to do is we're going to just double check that she hasn't in fact skipped across the road, dodged leaving tracks completely, which occasionally Karula does. And as I said, we'll go just quickly have a look for those elephants that I heard trumpeting somewhere in this direction. I see my beanie's doing its usual thing. Just by the way, the beanie is, well, I washed it. And the pom-pom now looks really sad and pathetic. Really sad and pathetic, to the point that I'm contemplating cutting the pom-pom off, which is utterly devastating. And this isn't my hat, so we'll have to wait for Kirsty's return to Wild Earth before I can get her permission in order to do that, since it is her beanie and not mine. I'm not looking forward to the moment when I show her the devastating effect that water has had upon that pom-pom. I'm unsure how to resurrect it. Okay, the eddies are somewhere here. Their fresh tracks are everywhere. It is windy, so we shall be approaching them with a degree of caution. Not that we don't always. Heard them here. And actually it's quite a nice idea to just drive through the Mulwati as well. And absolutely, just talking about our leopard and our leopard cub, was one of the things that we always enjoy watching, is the bumbling first attempts of a leopard cub to hunt something. And yes, that Franklin would be perfect prey for a young leopard cub. We once watched, ages. We watched an approach of Franklin's when Sandile was still very young, before the dog incident. He was stalking a Franklin, or at least a Franklin was unwittingly wandering towards him, and he'd gone completely flat and still. He never pounced on it in the end, but there was a very good chance that he was going to. Where are these Ellies? I wonder if they didn't trumpet because they found Karula. It's possible. They've gone quiet again. And their tracks are sort of coming down in here. Oh well, we're in the Mulwati now, we might as well explore it properly. One of my favourite things to do is to drive along this drainage system and just see whatever it is can be seen. It is a perfect hiding hole for any of the leopards out here. And there's also always the chance of seeing the relatively rare bushbuck or anything of that nature. Lots of elephant tracks in this direction. And there's also, this is one of Karula's favourite hunting grounds, so I'm hoping we've missed her tracks coming across somewhere here, and that she's in the drainage system. Imagine we see the cubs playing in the sand. Oh, it would be wonderful. And welcome to Malik, who has, I think, is one of our newer viewers, and said that you see that we have lions, leopards and cheetah, but where on earth are those tigers hiding? Malik, we don't have any tigers in this area. The tigers are based in Asia, around India and Russia and those sorts of places. Unfortunately, ours is not the suitable place for a tiger. There are tigers in South Africa. They are, however, not free roaming. They're not wild tigers, unfortunately, as much as I would love, and trust me, I would really truly love to work with, oh goodness gracious, not again. This is getting ridiculous. Okay, well, flat tire, here we go. This is a leadwood. Oh, here we go. Over we go. Malik, I would love to work with tigers. It is a dream of mine one day to just even get to see a tiger in the wild. Unfortunately, there aren't any wandering about South Africa. Everybody ready to go through the archway? You ready, Dave? Here we go. Everybody duck. I love this archway. And now we are through and out the other side of the archway, desperately seeking anything to show you. Wait, I'm running out of ideas here. Hold on a moment. I can't remember what my original one was. Ah, I remember now. Some say he can track a bird flying through the air. Others say he survived an entire year on a diet of just spikethorn leaves. Asterisk disclaimer, please don't try that, you will die. All we know is that he is Steph, and I think he may still be with those lions.
I'm not even going to try and come back with anything like that. I don't know what to say. Well, except thank you, Jamie. I think, let me just start with that. Let's pay a compliment. Thank you very much for those nice, kind words that you're saying about me. Literally, since you've left us to right now, these lions have done exactly what you're seeing them doing at the moment. Just sleeping and resting up. Not using a lot of energy. I think when you don't eat for 5 days or a week or whatever it is, you don't want to do too much between bouts of mating. And basically, but we're not getting too far away from when I think she's going to jump up again. We're about 10 minutes now. So in another minute or two, there we go, there's her head up. Prediction. Let's see what she does. Yeah, there we go. That was good timing on your part. Well done. There's a dominance again. Now we're going to be stuck. I'm going to have to try and find a gap for you here. There you go. Again, not the very best view for you, I'm sorry. Once again, balefully looking at us, boy, I promise you, that's all yours. He's not in bad condition, actually. You can see how staunch his hindquarters are. He has got that belly flap of skin, though. You see, perhaps if he turns around one last time, you'll see a belly flap of skin. There you go. That's looking a little bit empty. That belly flap there is to allow for some expansion to happen when they bolt food down. Eating almost... David, who's a new viewer, welcome to the show, David. You've asked, do lions need to eat while they're mating? Probably not, David, to be quite honest with you, unless they went into the mating sequence hungry. Both of these lions now have been going at it for about 5 days now, and the male hasn't lost too much condition. You can see by virtue of that belly flap that was running down the middle of his belly that he could do with a meal, he could do with something, but he's by no means skinny whatsoever. The female is also looking a bit lean, but once again, I would hazard to say that she's not doing too badly, actually. She's looking a bit lean, and I suppose in the next 48 hours or so, she's going to need to join her sisters and hopefully get a morsel to eat from them. But actually, they're not too bad. As to whether or not they will eat while they're mating, I think if food was readily available, in other words, if, for instance, a leopard had to kill something or another lion had to kill something within earshot, the chance of them getting up and to go and steal it is a possibility. I would say that they'd probably go and do that and devour it, but it's unlikely that something like that will happen in this particular area. While not impossible, improbable. So they generally don't eat, even though they probably could do with a morsel or two. All right. And there is a little bit of speculation as to what lion this is. Has it been mating with this particular female? He does not have a split in his lip, which the other male did. The other male that we saw mating with a female lion a couple of days ago has a split in his lip. I presume it's the same female. I wasn't in that sighting. I'm not too sure exactly what it was. I did see a picture of that male, though, with that split in his lip, and I can tell you that this male does not have a split in his lip. As to why he would be mating with this female and not the male with a split in his lip, that's one of these 20% questions again, these anomalies. Generally speaking, male lions from the same coalition do not swap partners once mating is commenced. It may be that her body is going through a little bit of hormonal fluctuations and she wasn't giving off any particular pheromones for that portion of the day, that one male arrived and another one left. I'm not too sure. That is one of these unanswerable questions right now without a detailed scientific investigation, something which I definitely won't be able to do, that's for sure. So as to why the males changed, I'm not too sure. You can see there she's... Oh no, I think she's just trying to get comfortable, really. I don't think there's any sort of motion to movement going on here whatsoever. Now that they're lying about 50 yards away from us, have a look at the fantastic camouflage that her back is providing us against the backdrop of the bush. There we can pull out, and although he's very distinctive, she although it has a smooth margin with their belly, and that's how we sometimes find them, is broken up by that bush there and is very camouflaged. Now imagine a dark night, or imagine yourself being a zebra, and on a dark night with that sort of coloration and this lioness sneaking up to you. I definitely don't want to be a zebra, or an impala, or anything that lion eats really. It would be one scary thing, having the sand at your feet all of a sudden turn into a pair of teeth and claws. So Michael 18 has come up with the answer to a question that I pitched at our audience in the beginning of the show, where there was some debate as to what constituted a fawn and what constituted a lamb. And Michael 18, thank you very much for helping us out with this, Michael. And so a lamb is the offspring of a ewe and a ram, and a fawn is the offspring of a buck and a doe. So it's just a language thing really, probably got to do with where it came from. But thank you very, very much, Michael. That's quite interesting. That's yeah, much appreciated. Hello. Daryl has asked if male lions would help to take care of cubs. Daryl, in their own way, they do. The security of a particular pride is enhanced by males. And so males keeping out rival males mean that cubs won't get killed by those rival males in an effort to bring females into estrus so that their babies carry their genes. So males really do. They don't have an active part. In other words, they won't take over sort of parenting duties for an evening while mom goes out to hunt some zebra. That doesn't happen. But in their own way and in their own form, they are essential to cub survival. They also will lend a hand at kills, especially larger kills. If males are with a pride and they happen to hunt some buffalo or even a giraffe or even some elephant in some cases, male lion, their weight in the fight is absolutely crucial to sometimes bringing down that kill. And in that case, meat is provided then for the whole pride, not just to be stolen or dominated by the males. And in that sense, they look after the baby's nutritional requirements. But that would only be on a sort of on-off basis, really. Definitely the biggest contribution that they do to looking after the cubs is to make sure that the cubs live in a relatively unmolested environment where it's just their moms and their siblings, and all they need to do is basically hunt for food and look after themselves, take care around hyena and such. I hope that answered your question there. His mane is beautiful. He hasn't got a dark mane, a black mane. Not all male lions get black manes. They will get darker when they take over a pride. Their bodies also produce more testosterone around when they are in their prime, so between 5 and 9. But also taking over a pride changes the chemistry in their body as well, and they will get darker manes once they've taken over a pride. But you can see that the darker hair there on the back of his head starting to come through his long mane. Some lions, like those Matimba males, the one male, the hairy-bellied male of the Matimbas, which is the coalition of males that these Birmingham boys, or this male, helped to kick out a year ago. He had an enormous mane that extended all the way down, basically to where his belly started, and down his legs onto his elbows. He had a glorious mane. These youngsters, they don't yet have that. I have no doubt that one or two of them will get bigger manes, but it looks like he is a blonde male, this, rather than a dark, shaggy-haired male. And Justin S. has asked if a lioness will feel a loss if she loses her cubs and mourn them, I suppose. Justin S., I have seen lionesses definitely show, I won't go so far as to say it's a sad emotion. I'm loath to say that lions have the types of emotions that we think about in terms of human emotions, but you definitely do see a sense of loss. They go through a mourning phase. They will call repeatedly, going from bush to bush to bush looking for their cubs. In some cases, if they find the body of a cub, they'll pick up the cub and walk around with it. Hopefully, I don't know what they're trying to do. In some cases, they even eat their dead cub. Why they do that, I'm not too sure. It's not just about, wasting a potential food source. It's something deeper than that. I don't know what emotion that would be, but it's definitely something. So absolutely, I think that they do mourn the loss of a cub. However, I don't think it's to the same degree that we do, and it may be, but maybe not for as long as what as long as what we mourn the loss of our babies for. Don't forget that we've got slightly different structures to how we look after babies, or how we deal with our own young. We place a massive amount of energy into the upbringing of our babies. We're pregnant for 9 months versus a lion's 3 months. We have these massive long periods of time. I think one of the longest in the animal kingdom, where babies are dependent on adults. And so we put a lot of energy into each individual baby, and we generally speaking have relatively few children over our lifetimes compared to lions, which will have litters of up to 6 individuals every 2 years. They will have 6, and they'll do that for 12 years. So I think it's different for these types of animals. Ourselves, one baby at a time, lots of energy over a long period of time, to animals like lions, which have lots of babies at a time and don't put a lot of energy, relatively speaking, into the upbringing of their cubs. It's not to say that mothers do not give a lot of care and attention to their cubs. You absolutely see that they do, but it's just not over the same time period as what that is for us or other animals with these long, basically long toddler years. Elephant would be one, rhinoceros would be another, whales would be another one, porpoises like dolphins would be another one. I'm trying to think of other ones which have these massively long. Hyena would be another one. That hyenas probably doesn't fall within this particular explanation, as they also have litters that are quite large, and they'll also put a lot of energy over a long period of time into bringing up their cubs. So yeah, interesting debate there, or interesting question there. Let's see if anything else that I can add to that. No. So definitely they don't feel for as long, and I don't know to what degree. That's tough to gauge, or tough to judge from where I sit here. We have a new viewer watching us at the moment. His Twitter handle, I'm judging, is Silverback. Silverback, the name you've chosen to name yourself is generating many pictures in my head. Primary of which is, of course, the gorillas that Brent has just been to see in Rwanda. You are also a new viewer, and for that I would like to say welcome onto the show. And I hope that we get to see or hear from you more often. And you've asked, am I not scared? Why am I not scared being so close to lions or the wild animals that we have out here? To be honest with you, it's a bit of complacency, I would say. It's not to say that I'm not nervous of these animals. It's not to say that I don't get scared watching them sometimes or walking around in the bush or living here. It's just that this has been my home for the last 17 or 18 years. And I've been watching and interacting with animals like this, not these particular ones, but animals like this for that entire time. And if I think back to my first couple of years of guiding, I was almost perpetually terrified of everything. I always thought every elephant was going to squash my car and every lion was going to jump into the back. But you get a sense of complacency, I suppose, with a bit of understanding and experience. And that not every animal wants to jump into us. They don't see this particular vehicle as a source of food. We do not look like a zebra. We do not look like an impala. We don't behave like prey species of animals. We don't smell or even in some cases taste like prey species of animals. And that makes us just really part of the family once they relax and let you into the pride, so to say, or into the herd in terms of other animals. It's not to say that dangerous encounters do not happen. They happen here very frequently, especially run-ins with elephants, tight situations with leopard. You can get yourself into sticky situations with lion from time to time, more so on foot than in vehicles like this. But the time between being terrified and being awed and feeling at peace in nature, I think, extends with this experienced knowledge and this complacency syndrome that develops. It's not to say it's not dangerous, though. If we had to act in a manner that is untoward, for instance, if those lions were mating right next to the car, which happens from time to time, and I had to all of a sudden make a sudden movement that seemed quite threatening, similar to that, those lions, there's every possibility that they could react negatively and jump against the car, even into it. There's no barrier here. There's nothing that I could do to stop that from happening. Has it happened before? I've watched a lion jump onto the back of a car, game vehicle, before, and the game ranger just literally reversed his car over that lion and it ran away. I've also watched leopard jump onto car doors to inspect people and to inspect the drivers of these particular cars. I've watched lion come right up to cars and sniff people and shoes and jackets. So yes, I've seen close interactions like this before, but definitely not aggressive in the car things. That's unheard of in the Sabi Sands. All right, and on that scary topic, I think it's time to go back to Jamie for an update.
To be 100% honest with you, lions coming towards cars would be, well, let's say that the morning that Dave and myself are having, it might be a welcome sight. At some point, our bad luck streak has got to run out. But for now, I have absolutely no updates for you. The elephants seem to have crossed south out of our traverse area, or at least some of them did. There's got to be some remaining, but I can't find any. In the far distance, there is a bird of prey. You see it there, Dave? Yep. Let's have a look at that. And hopefully something will decide to come and find us. Looks like our hawk eagle. Hello, gorgeous. Oh, you're looking a bit ruffled on a windy day. And I think it's safe to say that's why our francolins are chirping away frantically where they are in the drainage line. That's actually what brought me to this area, was I was following the sound of them alarm calling. And I think that this chap, or lady, I'm not sure which one it is, may well be responsible for their consternation. An expert bird hunter in terms of catching guinea fowl in Franklin. There's usually 2 of them. In fact, I can almost guarantee there'll be a second somewhere there. I just can't, perhaps we can't see it from the angle that we're at. And I think, judging by the Franklin's constant squawking in distress, that they perhaps made a failed attempt at catching one of them. That happened to us the other day at the lion sighting, where we were sitting comfortably just watching the little lion cubs moving about, and all of a sudden a frantic francolin made a beeline for the safety of the termite mound, only to discover that there was a lioness on the other side of it. So the poor hapless Franklin was squawking, managed to find itself safety, but I think probably came away from that particular incident with a serious shot of adrenaline coursing through its system. And when Franklin are hunted by something like this, if they have a happy escape, they constantly make boop, boop, boop noises of distress. Sorry guys, there's a lot of communication happening on the game drive comms. Now, speaking of all of our birds, of course we shall be eagerly anticipating the return of some of the migratory species over the next few months. It's a little bit early to be expecting them to be returning, but it does give us an opportunity to answer Megan's question, which is of the birds we see, approximately what percentage will migrate during the winter months. Give me a second, Megan. I'm doing a rough calculation in my head to try and work that out. I would say probably around 15 to 20%. But most of the cuckoo species, a lot of the raptor species, and then quite a few are the kingfishers. The woodlands kingfisher, of course, being the one that we hear its return broadcast very loudly the minute they get back with that chirr call that they make. 15%, I would say. Maybe 20% was a bit of a high estimate. I might actually ask Steph that question as well, what he thinks the rough percentage is. But that seems to me about right. And we can see about over 300 different bird species while you are on these live safaris. Most of them, however, in the Sabi Sand, actually, or quite a few of them, spend a lot of time around the river system. So things like the purple-crested turaco, which I would love to be able to show you to add to your bird lists, your budding bird lists, we would have to travel elsewhere in order to find. And all the time, silently and quietly, we've actually been closely watched by a pair of browsing kudu that I have. Oh, there's the. Sorry, I think I see the second one. Oh no, looks like a batelier the way that it's flying. Juvenile batelier. You see how the tail is slightly longer than an adult batelier, and then of course the lack of the striking colours. Well done, Dave. Awesome. You can see it rocking backwards and forwards in the high winds. I often wonder whether they enjoy flying in this sort of weather or whether it's actually kind of terrifying for them. So not the second of the hawk-eagle pair, but in fact a young batelier that has not yet acquired his adult plumage, like our fish eagle that we saw yesterday. Just on the subject of our fish eagle, yes, hello Kudu, we'll have a chat about them in a moment, but just on the subject of our fish eagle, the end of that saga yesterday when she caught the catfish, and I said I thought that she had dropped it, or he had dropped it, but that she'd called in a juvenile that flew in. She hadn't dropped it. She'd rested it on a leadwood. She'd been looking for a solid perch to put the catfish down, and then she gave up her spot and let the juvenile come in and feed. Just a fascinating end to that tale. And yes, there's the kudu that has been watching us the entire time while we've been sitting watching the hawk-eagle. No, she's playing camera shy with her attendant oxpecker, picking off the ticks from her fur. Let us continue on along Gari Cutline, in the hope that we can find you something. Perhaps Mvula will pop out here, since he was just a little bit further to the north. We live in hope. I can't help but wonder where Karula's been hiding this whole time. Even the birds are actually playing a little bit hard to get this morning, hiding away. It's the kind of miserable weather that most of the animals don't particularly enjoy. Except those really noisy Franklin that are still calling behind me. Come on, Gari Cutline, you haven't let me down for a long time. It's almost like my lucky road. Less so for poor Connor, for this is where he launches the drone from, that we've been practicing with, or experimenting with. Dave, I've just thought of something else.
Yeah.
You must be even more glad I told you to wear long pants today. That just occurred to me. Dave came out really optimistically in shorts this morning. Now, I did warn him that the weather was going to be foul, but probably the long trousers also protected him from more serious thorn-inflicted injuries. Eddies have been through here as well, but they look like they're going north, towards our northern boundary. And just an update, sorry, on why there's so much chatter on the Game Drive channel. They found a deceased elephant on Buffelshoek. Now, it happens. It'll be natural causes from what they can see. Sometimes elephants do die. It's probably old age. It's probably not at this point any kind of drought-affected death. But there is a very large, apparently very large, dead elephant in Buffelshoek, and I think there's a very good chance that our lions are going to start heading across in that direction when they smell it. It's just to the north of us, where unfortunately we cannot travel. We're limited in terms of where we can go. Good morning, Aubrey. Welcome to the Sunrise Safari. Aubrey says that she hears me talking, or he hears me talking on the radio to Aubrey, and was wondering if there is somebody called Aubrey working for Safari Live. There is indeed somebody called Aubrey who works on this reserve. He is a wonderful guide that guides out of Galago or Voyatella camps, mainly Galago. Now those are two lodges that guests can come and visit right next door to our Safari Live. So yes, Aubrey doesn't work for Safari Live or with our team, but we do work with him because he helps us find all of the animals. Now yes, Aubrey, who has been around for many years in the bush and knows it like the back of his hand, which is one of the reasons why I've moved my search further afield for Karula, because if Aubrey thought we had a chance of finding her, he would still be there searching. Oh goody, there's another waterbuck watching our advance. So yes, Aubrey, there is another one of your, well, there's another Aubrey that works on Djuma. Waterbuck bull observing us with a great deal of concentration. And when they stand tall and proud like this, you can see why they were chosen as the symbol of the Sabi sand. Those beautiful outwardly curving horns, deeply ridged by keratin growth. Thoroughly elegant antelope. Also particularly pungent antelope, but we won't hold that against them. James describes the smell as goat-like. And Veritas, just on the, we were speaking before about venison and whether or not South Africans will eat the different antelope. Biltong doesn't necessarily, now biltong, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, is a South African snack that is made from dried and salted meat, originally invented by the voortrekkers moving through South Africa. Obviously they didn't have refrigeration capacity, and the salting and the drying of the meat allowed them to keep it for longer. It's the equivalent of beef jerky, but having tasted beef jerky, I have to be honest, it's not quite the same. And when I was a child, I grew up teething on biltong. Oh, waterbuck giving us a bit of a wink there. So biltong is not, it can be made from venison, from antelope. It can also be made from beef. They've invented chicken biltong, which I can't say is particularly... Oh, there's two. Hello, waterbuck bull. Didn't... What was that?
It sounded like impala.
Hmm?
I thought it was impala.
I think it was impala. Just going to listen for that sound again. Because to me, or maybe it was impala. Got my earpiece in, so I can't hear exactly, but that almost sounded like a distress call. But it hasn't been repeated. So it's stopped now. Maybe it was impala. I'm going to do a circuit of the area regardless, just to see whether or not I can pick up on what that sound was. But yes, there's lots of different types of biltong, anything from beef to venison. And it is a very traditional South African snack. Two magnificent waterbuck bulls. Might just be a herd of buffalo moving through. Just caught the end part of that sound. I think I'm actually going to turn around. I know we're all the way at the fire break, but I think I'm going to turn around and just go back towards the dam and investigate and see what caused that mystery sound. It was a sort of a sound, kind of like a buffalo. Alright, I'm going to go and investigate our sound. I'm going to try and find a safe place or good place to sit and listen. In the meantime, I have completely run out of ideas for these links, and I thought I'd give Steph a little bit of break from them. So over to Steph, let's find out how his lions are doing.
Well, thank you very much for that, Jamie. I knew it would end at some point, but I was liking the compliments anyway. We've just literally been hanging out with these lions. It's very rare that we get a chance to just sit in the bush, dead quiet, no other vehicles around us, alone with a mating pair of lion right here. And we're getting up to the point where they need to mate again. While you were away, they did mate one more time. It's why we've slightly repositioned where we are. We now are no more than 5 yards, from this particular pair. Still not seeming to pay us the least amount of notice. Just relaxing. I don't notice them shivering. I feel like shivering at the moment because we're not driving and keeping busy. I must be honest. A chill has set in me. And I can't wait to get home and cup a cup of coffee in my lap and around my hands. The bird life around us at the moment, there's been a bird party that's come into this area and moved into this area with these lions. And we've got a black-headed oriole, southern black tits. We've had a group of Aramark babblers, a hoopoo. What else have we had, Gert, that you saw? A white helmet shrike. We have had a black-breasted snake eagle and a batelier all flying around us in the last couple of minutes. It's been spectacular to watch. I've had my nose in a book, and I must be honest, there are very, very, very few things on this earth that give me greater pleasure than being in the presence of one of the large animals in Africa, alone and untroubled, with a box full of books, a friend, and the ability to teach people something new about the bush. It is a very nice day. One of those days to remember. And of course the fact that it's overcast means that the sun isn't beating upon my bald head, turning me into something like a circus animal of some sort. Very special. Taking into context, this female, Gert and I were just busy having a chat about this female. He was privy to the first matings a couple of days ago, and he can absolutely confirm that this is the female that was mating 5 days ago, but not the same male. That male had a split in his lip. We, for a period, were debating whether or not this was even the same couple, whether maybe in the subsequent days, that perhaps it was a different male and female, and that perhaps they've moved on and a new couple have started. But he seems to be pretty convinced that it's the same female with a different male, which is rare. Not uncommon, but rare. I've got a chin spot Baptist. Sally in Oregon has just asked if she has changed males, could she have snuck off to her cubs? Quite possibly, Sally. You know, one thing that I have realized in all the years here is that while we think we know what these animals get up to, we absolutely have no idea. And even though we spend hours a day, I mean, we've literally been with these lions now for an hour and a half, maybe even longer than that. There's still 22 and a half hours left in this day, and who knows what they get up to in those days. I do have experience with lioness and cubs, and they move often. Quite often, you find them in exactly the same place in the afternoon, but they've walked to dens and back, they've walked to water and back. You find them walking all over the place. So, quite possibly, Sally, you know, just because we see them lying down doing nothing, mating every 10 minutes with one another and carrying on sleeping, doesn't necessarily mean that this is what they do the whole day. And in particular, when lions are most active, which is at night time, we are safely ensconced in our camps and have absolutely no idea what these cats get up to. Literally, from 6 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning, we rely on tracks and tracking, and I must say, we're not the world's best trackers, and so unless it's absolutely fresh, a track that's a couple of hours old, we don't know where it goes and what it gets up to. So Sally, I'd like to believe that she is visiting her cubs. It's equally a possibility that her cubs are dead already or have died. Just the fact that only 2 out of every 10 cubs that get born reach maturity is enough to tell me that the odds are stacked quite heavily against them, unfortunately, in their first couple of weeks of life. But the fact that she's mating with this male, whether or not she's got cubs, is a good sign. There's a stable pride structure at the moment. These Birmingham boys are young, they're strong, they are set to be here for hopefully many years to come. And even though she may have lost one litter, she's bound to have many more litters from now. I know that sounds a bit hard, but it is you know, the chances are good that she'll have more babies, I think, is what I'm trying to get at, rather than say she needs to just get over it. I don't think that is easy for anyone. Rob and Ferreira, all the way from New Zealand, good morning. Well, it's good evening to you by now, probably already, and I hope the day that we have yet to go into shows some promise. You've just asked me what's the ratio, what's the percentage of successful copulations for every cub that gets born. I only know of one statistic here, Rob, and that is that it's on average, and this is averaged across probably a continent rather than in a game reserve or a specific population of lion, that for every cub that reaches 1 year of age, 1,000 copulations will have to take place. So every cub that reaches 1 year of age, 1,000 matings will take place. I personally probably think that that's a bit high. You see them mating, let's say over a 5-day period, let me see, over a 24-hour period, and this is just taking into account what I've seen, the first day, the first 3 days will be quite hectic. If the female is in just a normal estrus cycle, that's a dominant male in the area, she doesn't have to shop around for other males, etc., etc. The first 3 days are quite hectic, with a mating taking place at first every 5 minutes and then decreasing to every 3 minutes about. That lasts for about 24 hours, and then it moves off into a sort of 5 to 10 minute gap for 24 hours, and then it'll move from a 10 to a 15 and then to a 20-minute gap for around about 48 hours, tailing off to about one mating every half an hour to one mating every 40 minutes or so for day 5 or day 6, somewhere around there. So you can work that out, I'm sure, quite easily, much easily than me sitting here without a calculator at hand. And you'll see that there'll be a certain amount of matings. If she falls pregnant at this first copulation attempt over these couple of days, she will have between 2 and 4 babies. That's the most common thing here. So, divide that amount of matings by, 4 if you want the outside number, and that should give you an amount of copulations per baby. That should be able to allow you to do an amount of copulations per baby. Then factor in the fact that on average, not here in the Sabi Sands, more cubs survive in the Sabi Sands than in other places. But let's say that 50% of the cubs that are born die before they're first year old, and that'll give you another idea about how many matings are there in this particular area with these lions per baby that reaches a year. It should be somewhere quite high, I'm gathering, just trying to do the maths quickly in my head. I'm thinking that it's probably somewhere in the hundreds of attempts of matings for each baby that's born that reaches a year of age. And they'll have babies, if they have babies, if they successfully rear babies, they'll have cubs every 2.5 years. And if the males are lucky, they will sire up to 3 generations with the same female. If they are lucky, up to 3 generations with the same female. Generally, they hold on to territories for between 2 and 3 years across Africa. Coalitions in the Sabi Sands and this part of the Kruger National Park can hold their territories a little bit longer than that, sometimes up to 5 years, but not much longer than that. Right, Jamie's got a bit of an update for you on whatever she's been keeping herself busy with in the last couple of minutes. As soon as they start mating again, I'll try and shout you back.
I've been desperately trying to keep myself and Dave busy. There hasn't been a repeat of that sound from the middle of the bush. I don't know what that was, but we'll have to leave it as one of those unsolved mysteries for now. I've just been keeping myself busy driving around to check Galago Pan, and then hoping that my luck shall change in the future. For this morning has not been what I would call a hugely successful drive. I still had fun though. It's still wonderful just driving around, soaking in the atmosphere of the African bush, and eagerly anticipating the leopard that will be around the next corner. It was hopeful. It was hopeful. There isn't a leopard around the next corner, but there might have been. There definitely might have been. Let's just go and check Galago Pan ever so quickly. One of the few pumped water holes in this area, and therefore one of the few remaining water holes for the animals to come and drink. Hoping perhaps Mbula is just stretched out in his cat-like way across a termite mound. But I fear no such luck. All is quiet. Okay. Well, on that note, a big thank you to Dave for braving the dangers of the job and moving the monkey thorn, as well as, of course, his fantastic camera work, as always. Thank you to Rebecca and to Lou in final control, and a big thank you to Steph for putting up with my absurdities. And most importantly, a big thank you to all of you watching across the globe. Join us in a few short hours for the Sunset Safari. In the meantime, I'm going to send you a farewell and send you back across to the amazing Stefan Winterboer. Bye-bye, everybody.
I would gladly put up with Jamie's absurdities into eternity. She's a fantastic person to be around, and I'm privileged to be part of the team that she's in. So thank you very much, Jamie. It wasn't bad at all today. You're welcome. These lions haven't done much since you've left. We have got an impala that has walked into the monkey orange thicket that is behind these lions. They haven't paid the sound the least bit of attention. I don't quite know. These impala around here for mating lions in the daytime, I think that Impala's got a good chance of being able to dance a jig on the sand in front of these lions and escape unscathed. But let's hope in the next 3 minutes or so before we close that you get to see a mating event one last time. As mentioned already a couple of times, it is actually a special time. So James Richard has just asked a question: would a male who's dominant have a lower testosterone level than a male who isn't? Absolutely, James. Male lions that have a territory and are in charge of a pride and are dominant definitely have higher levels of testosterone in their blood system than male lions who do not. That I've heard from a couple of sources in the Kruger National Park already. And so I tend to believe it. You can also see it. They tend to be bigger, they're more aggressive, they have more robust manes. So yeah, I would absolutely support that James. Without doubt, in actual fact. Now we've got 2 more minutes. I'm hoping that in the next 120 seconds you get to see them mate at least one more time. So with all my willpower, I'm willing this female to stand up or this male to do something. They're now lying almost nose to nose. I think he's busy staring at her lovingly. I can only imagine in my mind's eye that his unblinking stare is boring into her forehead, trying to make her understand his intentions. But then that's just the way my mind is working at the moment. Nothing else. She, of course, blissfully unaware and ignorant to his advances, all by design. What I am going to do is I am going to say goodbye so long, just in case I don't get to do it while they're busy mating. So while they're still quiet, I'm going to say goodbye and thank you for joining us on the safari. I'm so glad after the drought that Jamie and I have had in terms of big cats that we finally managed to spend a significant amount of time with these big cats. So from myself and Gert, and thank you to all of you, thank you to FC, thank you to everybody. We'll see you again this afternoon.